Hello everybody, I want to do a quick review of the throttle and gauge setup that I got from Vortex Aero, Adam Kruger over there. I'm not going to go over prices with this because there's several different options depending if you get it with the fuel gauge or without the fuel gauge, and you can also get the gauge by itself or the gauge with the throttle and so forth. I've been very happy with this. I've got about 2 hours of flight time with this on it, but it's very easy to use. It has a backlight actually. Let's see if we can get that in the... So, lights up real good. Of course it's not easy to see with it on the light in the camera, but low light if you're flying sunset or sunrise before and after a little bit, nice and easy to see. But you've got your RPM, you've got your total time, you've got your temperature as well, and it also has settings in here that you can go through and you can set max RPM, you can set different service intervals as well, you can set alarms for temperature and max RPM actually. And then onto the throttle. The throttle can either work obviously with this gauge, but to use the cylinder head, temp, and the RPM, you have to wrap a cable down it. But now there's also the option, if you look here, it's got these 3 pins on both sides. It's got these rubber plugs that come and you pull those out and you can get to the screw holes behind, so you can mount a gauge on either side. You can mount a gauge on either side of this, and then you don't have to run any wires wrapped around your sleeve. This also comes with a cruise control, which works very well. I've used that a few times. It has a built-in power switch or on-off switch so that you don't accidentally engage your starter. So like I turn this on and I start it when I'm flying, but then I disengage this so I don't accidentally touch it. But it only takes a second just to touch that to be able to start the engine again, and that way you don't have accidental starts. And then it also has the kill switch up here. Now the handle that is underneath this bike grip that I put on here is reversible with 2 screws as well, so you can make it a right or a left sided. I just put this on because coming from the throttle that I was using before, I really like the little bit larger grip, and it just gives me a better feel on the throttle. And it also comes with an extension on here that makes it a 3-finger throttle, but I don't really like that. I hold the brake back here with these 2 fingers, so it actually has a score where you cut it, and then I just took a Dremel and cut that part off and then just sanded it down smooth and even. So I've just got a nice 2-finger throttle. I actually flew with it after I cut it last night, 2 different flights, and it flew very nicely. Now I bought the option that comes, I have the fuel gauge as well, so you can either buy the Vortex Aero fuel gauge, which is an inductive type versus a gallon per gallon level, and I'll get to that in a second. But you can buy it by itself, and it comes with a little LED light that you can hook somewhere on your harness with a clip. Or if you buy this throttle, it actually has a plug in the back end of it where instead of plugging in the LED light, you plug it into the throttle, and when it hits the level of fuel you set it to, that light will come on. So to move over here, here's the fuel gauge, the other end of it, and when you turn that on, just uses a 9-volt battery. So when you turn it on, that red light comes on, and then when the fuel level gets below that sensor, that light goes off there. That's just letting you know it's working, but that light will go off, and the light on the fuel gauge. So if I take this away, you see how it doesn't sense any fuel, and that comes on, and so that is pretty bright, and that lets you know that you're getting your fuel level. There are other more expensive fuel gauges, but what I really like about this is I can sort of set this to what type of flying that I'm doing. If I'm going to just be flying over the field, I can put this down to maybe 3 liters or 2 liters or however, and then when I get down to that point, I know I'm going to be able to land because I'm right by the field. If I'm going on across country but returning to the same point, I can put it somewhere higher and make sure that I have enough fuel to turn around and come back with. So for me, I've got everything that I want in this. I've got RPM, temp, fuel gauge, my service reminders, my time, I have got a cruise control, and I've got my starter. I've even got my on-off switch, so I didn't have to wire in any additional on-off switch. And it works very well. I've got it hooked up to my Moster 185 with no problems. And I've got a couple of flights on it already. Actually, 3 flights on it already. So I'm very pleased with it. And thanks and shout out to Adam Kruger again at Vortex Aero for helping me out with this. So, everybody, hope to get out flying some this weekend, but until then, as always, keep flying.